$8.3 billion in the hole. That's, if we were to write a budget that just continued the last biennial budget, we'd need $8.3 billion more to do it. It means that we're going to have to do either of one of three things, and that is either cut $8.3 billion out of the services that we need for ordinary people, working people, people who want to be working, people who want to be retrained, college students, kids in K-12, all that. Or tax $8.3 billion, which we're not going to do, or more than likely some combination of those two that adds up to $8.3 billion. We can't get out of here, I think, by cutting our way out of it. We can't get out of here by taxing our way out of it. I think it's going to be a combination of the two. For me, that means two very separate sets of problems. I think we need to do some additional revenues. We need some increase in taxes. I have been working since I got here, since I was on the Ways and Means Committee in 1997, 98, against any increase in the retail sales tax, and hopefully for a decrease in it. It's a tax that is really regressive. It hurts working people. You know, it's one thing if you get a lot of income that you could spend or not, discretionary income, and you might or might not buy, a new set of golf clubs for $4,000, and you might or might not spend the $399 on taxes for that, the sales tax. That's a choice you can make at that income. But when you're in the lowest 20% of the earners, and your tax bill is 16.8%, that's a statistic, of your income, then the money that you're spending, you may not notice it because it's nickels and dimes. That's the nature of the retail sales tax. It gets under your personal radar. But that's your kids' lunch money. That's not discretionary income. This hurts poor people, and I don't want to see an increase in it. It's not to say that we may not go there. It's going to cause me some real emotional turmoil if we do. Like I said, I used to be on the Ways and Means Committee 10 years ago. And I remember it was a Republican majority. We had the money in the state. The economy was doing all right. But it was no new taxes. And as a consequence, I remember just the emotional difficulty of having a parade of people with good projects. They needed reasonable amounts of money. I remember a woman who wanted, I think, some reasonably small amount, $20,000, $25,000, to help in the outreach for a project that was for the deaf-blind. Now think about it, being deaf and blind. How do you communicate? They had 200 clients. They thought that there were about another 300 in King County for whom there was no services. And they wanted to do an outreach, and it would cost them $25,000, $30,000. I ended up getting the money for them. But when we're making decisions that are that outrageous, that it's conceivable that that woman could have heard me say no, I don't get that. Of that 8.3, I'd say about $6.1 billion is a decrease in our revenues that would have come anyhow. Just this economic storm started by a subprime mortgage crisis, which led to the banking crisis and a lot of other crises. And all right, I don't blame anybody for that other than bankers in New York. But there's $2.2 billion of that is inflicted by ourselves, by the voters who followed Tim Eyman. 1.7 billion was the cost to us in 1999 of that Initiative 695, which repealed the motor vehicle excise tax. It would be about $2 billion now. That's biannual dollars, money that we're not getting that we would otherwise have gotten. And about another 0.2 billion is from the cap on the property tax. It was created first by 722 and then by 747. It's down to 1% growth, even though inflation is like 3.5%, 4%. So this money, this revenue stream is disappearing at the difference at 3.5% or 2.5%. That's about 2/10 of a billion right there. Total of 2.2. This is money that we're going to be asked to go to the voters and ask them to tax themselves. I wish we didn't have to do it. I wish we could have that, at least that 2.2 billion, in some kind of more progressive tax. Personally, if it were not a political decision, I would like to see the motor vehicle excise tax. I would like to see an income tax. I've said that. I'm public about it. But I don't see us getting there politically. Too many people believe, wrongly, that an income tax, even though it starts at $100,000 per person, $200,000 per couple, including civil unions, that somehow they're going to end up paying that. Most people won't. Those are very wealthy people. The people actually who will be paying it understand it. They've benefited from their education. They're doing well. They're paying an income tax anyhow at the federal level. They don't have that much problem with it. The greatest resistance comes from people who will never pay those taxes. And I confess it's irrational.